everyone, and welcome to Cowgirl Yarn. My name's Maureen, and today we are working on the second portion of the Johanna Vest knit along. We'll be joining together our 3 pieces of the vest into one. So find your pieces and your pattern and let's get started. So at this point we have knit 2 fronts and a back, and I've got all my pieces on different needles. So I like to knit off of needles rather than off of waste yarn, but if you have yours on waste yarn, you can transfer them to needles for easier joining of the fronts and backs. You can use a size of needle that is a couple sizes smaller. It doesn't matter as long as it's holding onto your stitches and you're not losing any. So if you want to take a look at your pattern, we are on page 3 on join body. We're going to transfer the back panel stitches and left front panel stitches and stitch markers. That's kind of the key, is you've got to keep your stitch markers. If you haven't been using stitch markers, you might want to place them where they were suggested to be placed in the prior parts of this pattern. Those will indicate the kind of garter stitch welts that will arise above the slit. It's a really nice detail, and the stitch markers make it really easy to keep track of them. Okay, so these are my 3 pieces that I've knit. I've got my 2 fronts and my back, and I've already kind of aligned them so that they're lining up pretty close to where they need to be, so I know what order they need to go in. And I know that they need to go in this order because here is my edge with no garter stitch. That's my pickup edge for the button band, so that has to go on the outer edge. Here's my marker indicating the right side, also the V side if you need a little help with that. And then it's going to match up with the back garter stitch sides. So I've got my garter stitch here, my garter stitch here. They're going to come together here. And same story with my other side. So I've got my other side of garter stitch on my back piece and my other front piece garter stitch. Those are going to match up, right sides facing, and my naked edge for picking up stitches later is on the very edge. So I've got all of my pieces on knitting needles just because I find that easier to transfer stitches around than slipping off of waste yarn. If you've already slipped onto waste yarn, you can still put them on the needles to make your life easier, or if you want to just go for it, you can put your stitches from the waste yarn directly onto the needles. But I will be working from needle to needle. So I'm going to work from this direction first because my working yarn is still attached to the last front that I knit. And that makes it really easy because when I knit, I'm going to knit across the whole piece. So I am going to take my other side of my needle. This is my gauge needle. This is just a holder needle over here. And I'm just going to slip them. And remember, we're keeping our markers in place. So I'm going to leave this little marker guy in here as I slip. Now I always slip purlwise because you do not want to mess with the orientation of your knitting stitches, because then having a line of twisted stitches in the middle of a project is always just a heartbreaker. So I'm just slipping one at a time as if I'm going to purl. Here's a twisted guy. I'm going to fix him right now. Just one at a time. We'll motor our way across here. Now this is going to give us a lot of stitches per row, but the handy little markers are going to be really helpful for determining where our details are going to go, which are little garter stitch bits. And with this many stitches, we've also got our landmarks, meaning these garter stitches, anything that's really obvious or telling us something about our knitting. So we've got a garter stitch border that's telling us where our pieces join. We've got right side versus wrong side that's telling us which direction the knitting should be going. So landmarks in your knitting is it's a good way to get used to reading knitting. If you look for the big things first, then the smaller details will follow. And I did use a size 4 to hold my back stitches, and that's totally fine. The needle that you use to hold or slip off of will not mess with your gauge. It's the needle that you do the actual knitting with that really influences your gauge. And I'm keeping my marker intact, so I'm just going to slide it over and finish out slipping my row. Before I slip the next piece on, I just want to double check and make sure that we're lined up. Looks good. We can go to number 2. All right, now that all 3 pieces are on the same needle, we're just gonna double check and make sure that we've got our markers. Yay, got our markers. Keep those there. They're gonna be really important for the next detail. And everything's facing the right direction. We've got our edge stitches, no garter stitch border on the outer edge. This is our pickup edge. And then we've got our garter borders mirroring each other on each side. It's time for the right side row. So we're gonna slip the first and last stitches knitwise and knit all other stitches. Not so bad, right? So let's do it. So we want to slip the first and last stitches knitwise, just like we have for all other right side rows. So I'm just slipping knitwise. Remember, we only slip knitwise when instructed to. So slip knitwise, and then we're going to knit across. All right, we have knit across our first piece, and we're about to knit across the second. There's nothing else special that you need to do, just knit into it. It's going to feel kind of gappy, but that's what our little tails will be for. We'll cinch that up and make it more secure in the finishing process. So I'm just going to knit past it, slipping my markers when I come to them. So I'm coming up on the second join here, and I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm going to slide my stitch markers and knit to the end of the back piece. And just start knitting into the second piece, tightening it up when I can. That's the best we can do when we knit to join. We'll fix them later in the finishing process. If that looseness is really bothering you, you can stick a safety pin right here and clip those together, just to keep it together and safe. More for peace of mind than anything. But we'll just slip our markers and knit to the end. So we're all joined here. We've got our markers in here for the next few rows. And now we can keep going. All right, on the wrong side rows, we're gonna be knitting the garter stitch portions between the markers, and that's gonna create a garter stitch rectangle over the slit where the borders kind of converge into a really nice, neat line. So that is our following row, and the following rows after, we will be purling to the first marker, knitting to the second marker, first marker, second marker, and then purling across, and then knitting between the markers again. So thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you all got your vest joined together easily, and if you need any help, please don't hesitate to contact the store, leave us a comment, give us a call. Anything we can do to help you make this journey fun and easy, we will do it. Next week we will be working on the pockets, so get knitting to your 16 inches and we'll do pockets next time. Thanks so much.